Yo, what's up, everybody? I hope y'all good as always. You know what I mean? I know it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming, but I'm back at it once again. You know, and today we're gonna be dealing with the should I say Hampton? The Hampton Institute, mental slavery, kill the Indian, save the man. But it's more like kill the Indian Negro and save the man. It's all one and the same, you ask me. Indian and Negro. Same thing. But without further ado, better go ahead and start getting into the screen share and learn a little bit more about the situation. All right. So right now, the source is Jubileo Emancipation, the Emancipation Century, right? It said African Americans in the 19th century, slavery, resistance, abolition, the Civil War, emancipation, Reconstruction, and an idea. The first thing I want y'all to peep, you got a picture of Abraham Lincoln, and then you got what we would call a Negro boy. All right, good and black, Negro boy. Yeah, that's my son calling the dog. You know. So peep game now. Let's go ahead and get into it. What's the first thing it say? It say the American Indian at Hampton Institute, Virginia. So this is Hampton Institute of Virginia. It say the American Indian. But the first picture they show up here at the top is a black boy. All right. Now, this picture here, I want you to take a good look at it. I want you to take a good look at this picture. You see the, I would say pretendo, but you see the main thing right here, right? You see the dark-skinned Negroes, all the way Negro, right? And then you see these look like Irish type people, mulattoes, you know, hanging out with them. And peep game now. You see how our people, the people my color, copper tone, they looking like they ain't feeling what's going on. Look at their face. They looking like they ain't, man, we ain't feeling this. What is this y'all trying to make us do? You know, especially her. Her head leaned to the side and everything. You know how them supposed to be looking their head to the side like, man, I'm not. Wait, what you talking about, period? She looking like, man, look at this here. You know, she's paying attention. She's trying to learn, her and her. Oh, yeah. With that brother there, like, man, you got to be kidding me. This brother, him, looking like, damn, I can't believe I got to do this shit. She ain't really with it neither, but she learning too, right? They interested. They already know about the scheme. All right. I think I'm going to deal with this about 30 minutes to an hour. Try to be civil with the information, so I'm just, fibbing. Give it a little substance that you observe things. All right, so this picture is dealing with Louis Firetail, a seal walks Crow Creek, wearing tribal clothing in American history class. Okay. They are in American history class. Right. Hampton Institute, Hampton, Virginia, late 1890s, from the Library of Congress. All right. So this from the late 1890s, from the Library of Congress. All right. They say the grace, dignity, and poignancy of the photos in this blog entry belie a bitter memory for many indigenous people. Okay, Indian boarding schools, such as the one at Hampton's Normal and Agricultural Institute, which is now called Hampton University. Okay, so what they're telling y'all, indigenous people, that's key word, right? They say the grace, dignity, and poignancy, how you say that, right, of the photos in this blog entry be like a bitter memory for many indigenous people. And what these are? These are Indian boarding schools, such as the one at Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute, which is now called Hampton University. We got to know our history, people. They say it's his story, but hey, I don't know. Might be a little bit of both. All right. It said the abolitionist Frederick Douglass, in response to a question he often heard from whites, "What shall we do with the Negro?" said, "Do nothing with us. Leave us alone." He said, "Haven't you done enough to us already?" That used to be a saying they had back in the days. The white folks, "What we gonna do with these niggas or Negroes?" He said, "Don't do nothing with us. Leave us alone," is what we were saying. Right? They say those comments were probably echoed by the American Indian of the day. The 1800s were a century-long battle between indigenous and European descent peoples for American land. Okay, it's a European descent people. Now, I don't know. That don't necessarily mean that they were just pale colored people. Could have been dark, but if you descend from Europe, that was the goal, to take American land. American, the Indians, right? The indigenous people are already here. Whether destined or not, the European peoples would have the land and control it from sea to sea by the end of the century, right? So it's like, hey, however, whatever, they ended up taking control of the land, taking control, right? They say one solution for dealing with the indigenous people was to civilize them. Reservation schools were created with funding from the U.S. government and often the support of Christian missionaries. Y'all hear that, Christians? One solution was what? It said one solution for dealing with the indigenous people was to civilize them. And how are they going to do this? It said reservation schools were created with funding from the U.S. government and often the support of Christian missionaries. So we heard about these reservations and all that. They basically were reservation schools to civilize the so-called Indians, Negroes, indigenous people. freedmen. Okay. They say their purpose was to inculcate the Indian with white culture and prepare him for life among European Americans. Understand this now. What was the purpose of these schools? Their purpose was to inculcate, however you say that word, right? I never saw that word before. The Indian with white culture and prepare him for life among European Americans. Let me look up inculcate. Since y'all got some time, I got time, we got time. I ain't really doing no tripping, but at the same time, I want to be thorough, right? Let's check this word out. Inculcate. We ain't in no rush. This university. Once you come up out of here, you're going to know what you're talking about.
Inculcate.
That's right. Inculcate, right? And it means instill an attitude, idea, or habit by persistent instruction. That's one definition. Let me look at some of the synonyms of this word inculcate. Inculcate synonyms are instill, implant, fix, ingrain, infuse, impress, imprint, introduce, engender, produce, generate, induce, inspire, promote, foster, hammer info, drum into, along, drill into, imbue, brainwash, indoctrinate, teach. Mm, 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 mm. So when we say people are indoctrinated, you brainwash and stuff like that, that's what these schools are designed to do to you, right? And you have the so-called well-to-do people that have these educations and things like that, and they think that they are better off than the next man. It's like, yo, I graduated, I have these degrees and these accolades, and so therefore I'm better than you. But little do they know they were programmed and indoctrinated to not be who they truly are, to become docile. Okay. So the next definition is teach someone an attitude, idea, or a habit by persistent instruction. Well, it don't necessarily have to be bad neither, okay? It's just the simple fact that, hey, we want you to be this way, and we're going to train you to be that way, right? So now, mid-16th century, from Latin, pressed in, from the verb inculcare, from into, plus calcare, to tread, right? Heel. So it basically means to tread, right? And heel, like the bottom. Put you on the bottom of something. It's crazy. All right, now that we know what that means, let's continue. Right down here. Okay. They said their purpose was to inculcate the Indian with white culture and prepare him for life among European Americans, right? To kill the Indian in him and save the man. Okay? So that's the goal, to kill the Indian in him and save the man. In addition, numbers of indigenous young were placed in border schools or boarding schools where they were educated and acculturated away from their families. Understand the way they're saying that now. We know they were taken away from their families. They say they were acculturated away, where they training your children not to be your children anymore. It's basically like the first AI type thing. The first tool of brainwashing AI. Mm-hmm. And now they're doing it in another way, which we all are familiar with. When we're talking about that KJ. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. Well, I don't need to say too much, but y'all catch my drift. It's just another form of doing this. When we're talking about implanting something and all that type of stuff. All right. So that's been the goal the entire time. Mm-hmm. So now, let's say one solution did it. Okay, I read that already, right? It said kill the man, say the man, say in addition numbers. Okay, boom, boom, read that already. Now let's go. As we continue, right? It says Hampton Institute seemed a good fit for them. It was founded in 1868 by General Samuel Armstrong, who commanded colored troops during the Civil War. Okay. Who was he? His name was General Samuel Armstrong. And what did he do? He commanded colored troops during the Civil War. And he founded the Hampton Institute in 1868. Okay. They say Armstrong had proposed the institute as a way to prepare colored teachers for Southern schools. Understand now, what was the purpose? To prepare colored teachers for Southern schools. Understand, we're talking about Indians here, right? Okay. It's a teachers who will cost less than white, who can live the year, who can live the year through in one place, thus saving expense of transportation, who in fact can make a living out of their schools, and after being started, support themselves through augmentating their low salaries with money earned through manual skills learned at school, who would penetrate the country and singly occupy isolated remote places where our northern white ladies would never go or could never go. So basically saying, get your education on, get your skills up, start doing your own things, what they was told to do. For the ones that was getting sent down here, the teachers that was getting sent down from the north, okay, at Hampton University in Virginia, which they considered the north, to come down to the south, infiltrate the south, which they don't know they infiltrating, they think they, becoming good, well-do people, right, type thing. And they're looking at it as coming to do a good thing by teaching us, the people in the South, this information. And they was going to get paid lower wages, but with the information that they know and the information that they're teaching, form alliances and stuff like that in the country and start developing themselves as a nation, basically. Sound like the Black Wall Streets and all that type of stuff. Okay. It said the United States Indian policy eventually funneled indigenous students to the Institute. Understand this. The United States what? Indian policy eventually funneled indigenous students to the Institute. As noted here, Armstrong's dual mission at Hampton quickly became clear. Uplift the Negro from his state of degradation, civilize the savage, and teach him how to work. So they're saying that was the man's goal, right? On one hand, on both hands, right? Uplift the Negro from his state of degradation, right? Then civilize the savage and teach him how to work. So they implicating we ain't know how to work and stuff. That's the story he was selling. It say, as noted here, Armstrong's dual mission at Hampton quickly became clear. Okay, it say members of both races would be taught to dress, speak, work, behave as whites, despite the fact that they were offered no guarantee that they would ever be offered powers and privileges equivalent to those enjoyed by whites. Now, understand, they talking about two separate people then, right? Because they said two races, huh? So peep game. It say uplift Negro from the state of degradation, civilized savage, teach them to work. It say members of both races, right, would be taught. Okay, talking about black and white. Is that what they saying? Or are they talking about Indians and Negro? What are they talking about here? Huh? They say member of both races, right, will be taught to dress, speak, work, behave as whites. You know, when they said white, they're just referring to Europeans. And we know there's different shades. There are different shades of Europeans. And we know when we say white, we're talking about a social political status for the most part. It does not have anything to do with color per se, because there are no white people and there are no black people in the sense of skin tone. Okay? So when we're dealing with the actual colors of white and black, we know one represents good things, which will give the reflection of richness, and the black will give the expression of poorness, you know, lack and all of that. Be lack. So understanding this, we understand this paradigm, especially when they're deeming the people of dark skin to be savage and everything like that. And they're trying to bring them up to par, so to speak. All right. Since we understand this, okay, so what I said about the United States Indian policy, said eventually funneled indigenous students to the Institute. As noted here, Armstrong's dual mission at Hampton quickly became clear. Read all that. Dress, speak, look like whites, despite the fact that they don't care for themselves, privileges equivalent to those whites, right? It say, despite the fact that they were offered no guarantee that would ever be offered powers and privileges equivalent to those enjoyed by whites. Now, these are some of the children. We call them indigenous or whatnot, but we can clearly see that they dark skinned for one. They can go, you can tell they all kind of, they're a mixture. Tell those babies mixed up with stuff. All right, as we proceed. All right, the caption of this picture says, Hampton Institute, Hampton, Virginia. Before entering school, 7 Indian children of uneducated parents, 1897. The caption indicates these are Suwak's children from the Library of Congress. All right, it says Indian students were enrolled at Hampton from 1878 through 1923. The first group to come were prisoners of Western Indian wars. Okay, say the first group to come were prisoners of Western Indian wars who were being held in St. Augustine, Florida. Okay? So understand what's going on. So these are children of prisoners. My bad about the mic thing, yeah. But these are children of prisoners, right? Prisoners of war. And these children, I'm sure there were adults as well, were sent down to St. Augustine, Florida. They say more non-captive students came as time passed, right? They say more non-captive students came as time passed. So what is this saying? It's saying that the original students were basically prisoners. They were prisoners. So when these kids were sent out to boarding school and stuff like that and was trained the etiquette and all that type of stuff of a European, this was considered prison. Oh, wow. See, right now today they call prison and stuff like that rehabilitation centers, right? Where you're supposed to get rehabilitated and be able to be a productive citizen. It's telling you right there in your face that it's designed to take your mind away from you and have you to go along with the said American culture. But when we look at true American, I'm not even gonna go there. What is American culture then, right? And then I'm even okay. Let me keep going, y'all. I'm about to start getting turned because we already see the plot, and the plot thickens. The first group, right, to come were prisoners of Western Indians. So we're talking about the West, right? When they're over there taking the West, sending the people from the West to the East, East to the West, what it sounded like. But they just said they took the people from the West, they sent them over here to the East. Excuse me. To St. Augustine. Okay. It say students came as time passed. Say black and Indian students took classes together. Now where that black insert come from? All of a sudden. All of a sudden now it's black and Indian students took classes together. So what are we saying? The dark-skinned Indians are considered black, and the light-skinned Indians are considered, and the light-skinned ones are considered Indians. What are we saying here? Well, we got black Indians and we got Indian Indians. What are we saying? What's being said? Same kind of people, different shades. Is what it sounded like to me. All right, let's keep rocking. But it said they took classes together. So if it's just that alone, though, we're still in the same boat, regardless. So somebody deemed us to be the same or damn near the same. If you ain't the same, you damn sure cousins some kind of way. Then your cousin, how we can? If we can, who the first is? Is the light skinned ones or the dark skinned ones? Where they say all people come from, dark or light? Which one? Which one come first? Light or dark? Okay. But we ain't gonna get into all that because all that elementary is common sense. Because we're trying to get to what's really going on though at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we are the same character being characterized as the same. Whether we want to deal with the fact that the light are bastards of the dark, or no, I ain't gonna go there. Or bastard or bastards of the colonizers. they took advantage of the natives. But anyway, yeah, the buffers, well, they stay on topic, T. Okay, so I lost my place again. So I know we was down at Black. Yeah, it was somewhere down here though, right here. It say Black and Indian students took classes together. Although there were segregated classes for Indian students who needed to build their English speaking skills. As best as I can tell from online sources, the Indian experience at Hampton was relatively benign compared to, for example, the most famous or infamous Carliso Indian School. Okay. So I guess it's saying you have more information from the Carliso and stuff like that when it really come down to it. All right. At the end of the day. And then understand now, they were saying that the so-called Negroes or black or whatever, we ain't know English either. So, but you see how they try to play it as if, but not necessarily, because they didn't mention. You see how they just kept it Indian at that part. They say the Indian experience at Hampton, right, was relatively benign compared to, for example, the more famous or infamous Cartersville Indian School. So let me look at what benign mean, because I don't know what that means. Let's just check that out right quick. What is benign? Because now you see how they, I guess the language wasn't no problem for the blacks. Is that what they're saying? Because they ain't mentioned them. They must knew how to speak it real good. The black folks, so-called black people. And if that is the case, then why is that the case? Right? It say benign or benign is gentle and kindly. Then in medicine, it's of a disease, not harmful in effect. And the origin, okay, another definition. It's of a climate or environment mild and favorable. Okay, in not native, but the origin of the word is Middle English from Old French, bene, from Latin, beninus, probably been well plus genus born. So well born, they're saying it means basically, right? Being well born, then it goes to say compare with gentle, right? So you go down to the origin of gentle. And gentle is Middle English from Old French, gentle, high born, noble, from Latin, gentilis, of the same clan. Then it say see Gentile, like the Gentiles in the Bible, you see what I'm saying? It say the original sense was nobly born, hence courteous, chivalrous. Let's see, chivalrous. It's a later meaning mild, moderate in action or disposition. All right, like gentle, stuff like that, soft, polient. That's what it became to mean. So let's go back to this. Where was it at? It made me how they used it. It said Hampton was relatively benign compared to the famous or infamous, right? So it was fairly soft. It was fairly mild. It was fairly, it was dealing with the high-born and the noble people. All right, that's what the one Hampton was dealing with, the nobility type thing, the high-born people and stuff like that, the leaders of these tribes. Okay, yeah, y'all see what I'm saying? Now the one down in that's the one that was at St. Augustine that they're talking about. And as y'all can see, that was the one where a lot of the prisoners of war was being sent to, and their children and none, even though they said that some were non-captives or whatnot. Hey, but yeah. But I guess you had the school for the the low income, then school for the high income, or for whatever purposes, I don't know. But what we do know is that one is dealing with noble, and one was a little rougher. All right, that's basically what we're trying to say. One was softer than the other one. All right, so say let's get to this. Let's where we at with Benny. Say English speaking black and white. Say although builders, my bad, y'all keep losing my place. Probably not gonna be thorough and like to read by nothing, acting like I know what it's saying and I don't understand from a word or two. So you gotta look into that. All right, but let me start back right here though. All right, because I know I start. All right, say Black and Indian students took classes together, although there were segregated classes for Indian students who needed to build their English speaking skills. But as best as I could tell from the online sources, the Indian experience at Hampton was relatively benign compared to, for example, the more famous or infamous Carliso Indian School. Still, despite any success in integrating indigenous peoples into American society, the removal of Indian children from their homes and their culture has been a source of anger and despair for many indigenous people and others, right? This quote is about Indian reservation schools, but it's just as apt for the boarding school experience. Now, let me read that part again a little slower so everybody can really comprehend what's being said. That's why I like to try to talk slow sometime so we can have time to think in between hearing. So it says, still, despite any successes in integrating indigenous peoples into American society, the removal of Indian children from their homes and their culture has been a source of anger and despair for many indigenous people and others. This quote, okay. So y'all heard about the indigenous movement? They would say the Indian Removal Act, right? We hear them talk about the Indian Removal Act. Really, what they're saying, how I'm hearing this, how I'm seeing this, in a lot of cases, it was just about the children, removing the children, sending them off to these reservations, so-called educating them and cleaning them up. I see what's going on. Teaching them how to be civilized. Okay, these supposed to be the 5 civilized tribes, right? Oh yeah, we about to piece this thing together. These supposed to be the 5 civilized tribes, right? Okay. So they was taking the children, sending them out to boarding school. This is what the Trail of Tears is all about. So it was Trail of Tears because the parents was crying, the kids was crying, they were separated, forced to leave. Yeah, I see what's going on. I can see what's going on. Because ain't nobody in their right mind just gonna be trying to walk through all kind of treacherous and man, stop it. Yeah, they be playing us. Stole kids, took kids, snatched them up, disappeared them, took it from their folks, and a lot of them may never made it back to where they came from. And as a matter of fact, a lot of them down here to the south, from the upper south. Kidnapping them kids out from Virginia and places like that and sending them down to St. Augustine. As y'all straight up telling us, as being said. When I say y'all, as being said in this information I'm reading. I see. All right, let me keep going. It's crazy. All right, say still, despite any success of integrating indigenous people into the American society, remove. Okay, say despite them making successes, right, and people being civilized, it still was sore to the people, right, to the indigenous people because their kids were being taken away. It said this quote is about any reservation schools, but it's just as apt for the boarding school experience. So it's the same thing. Reservation schools, boarding schools, all the same thing. Same effect was upon the people. It said for tribal elders who had witnessed the catastrophic developments of the 19th century, the bloody warfare, the near extinction. I think they said it. For some reason, that don't sound right. Of the bison, the scourge of disease and starvation, the shrinking of the tribal base, the indignities of reservation life, the invasion of missionaries and white settlers, there seemed to be no end to the cruelties perpetrated by whites. And after all this, the schools. After all this, the white man had concluded that the only way to save Indians was to destroy them. That the last great Indian war should be waged against children. They were coming for the children. Okay? As they are today. So you see these two people, they're implicating. So I guess these are the so-called Indian aspect of them, which we know are basically Chinese with a little, with a little melanin or carbon in them. Excuse me, y'all. About to stretch. Y'all see that sister? Y'all can tell that's a sister pretty much. Okay, so these must be the Filipinos. All right. So it say 2 Indian students at Hampton University, late 1890s, from the Library of Congress, here and here. Okay, so I could probably do more research on this or whatever the case. It say for those who want to do more reading and research, right? The photographs are from the Library of Congress, Francis Benjamin Johnston collection. Okay, so I get these sources. It say photos of Indians at Hampton University are here. That collection also has photographs from the Carlisle Indian School. Go here. All these here's are hyperlinks right here. That's why I say here, right? They say a set of photos of the Indian boarding school experience is here. All right, so that's basically it. These are the sources they're telling you about. Okay, so now let's go to this right here. Get a little deeper into some of this information. Make this bigger for y'all. Shit about to get a little deep, people. I think y'all know that right now. So y'all see we just came from the Hampton. Now you know what that's all about and what the idea of it was, okay? So right now, to be exact with you about the source, I forget what it is. I think it's right here. This is the source, right? It's the reservation boarding school system in the United States from 1870 to 1928. See, because understand, people, this is where the major change came upon the people as far as like mental slavery goes. And that's the highlight. It's mental slavery, where they supposedly killed the Indian and saved the man, where they made you a part of European culture. Okay, got you following Columbia, a goddess of America, the goddess of America, Columbia, and Uncle Sam, right? The man and the woman. Uncle Sam and Statue of Liberty overshadowed Columbia. All right, but I don't want to lean too far on y'all with this here. All right, but listen, let me keep going. So we're talking about the reservation boarding school system in the United States, 1878, 1928. Go up here a little bit. Can you say, let all that is Indian within you die? That's with the exclamation point. Say, let all that is Indian in you die. Y'all hear that? It's a personal story by Carol M. Hodgen, When I go home, you know what I'm saying, talk to you, different stuff y'all can read, right? So let's get into the meat of this here. Okay, say justification and rationalization, day schools versus boarding schools, College of Indian School, and Richard Henry Pratt. The system begins to fail. Okay, so this is the highlights of what we're about to read. Okay, so now it's saying, by way of introduction, the reservation boarding school system was a war in disguise. It was a war between the United States government and the children of the first people of this land. Its intention was that of any war, elimination of the enemy. The reason this war is difficult to recognize is because it was covered by the attractive patina of a concept called manifest destiny. Okay, manifest destiny was a philosophy by which the white European invader imagined themselves as having a divine right to take possession of all land and its fruits. Okay, the reason that the concept of manifest destiny was so effective was because as it steamrolled across the land, it dragged the masses with it. The hooks that dragged these masses were many and were forged by Christianity and the Christian imprimatur. Although the fuel that energized manifest destiny was economic, the inspiration was in its alignment with divine will. This quote from the essay, God and the Land, illustrates this alignment. It says, although many natural historians and most natural theologians saw a specific signs of God in nature, few of them, however, would interpret the evidences of divine design as specifically as did John Archdale in his 1707 description of Carolina, in which he wrote, and courteous readers, I shall give you some further eminent remark hereupon, and especially in the first settlement of Carolina, where the hand of God was eminently seen in thinning the Indians to make room for the English. It at other times pleased Almighty God to send unusual sicknesses among them, as the smallpox, etc., to lessen their numbers. The reservation school movement was invented by the descendants of those who rode the Manifest Destiny bandwagon. Educating Indians was the refinement of the times, a continuation of the process. Its efforts was to confine Indians to sedentary life and open more land for use by whites. The reformers of the 1890s were just another group of torchbearers, doing their part in this ongoing process of cultural genocide and providing additional strands to strengthen the rope that forms the noose of genocide around the neck of Native people. Mm, 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 mm. Justification and rationalization. To the white pioneer and his government, education of Indians was a convenient and, at the time, attractive adjunct to the efforts to settle this land. To these white Christian people and the Arsops, Indian educators, to kill the Indian, save the man, was an appealing as well as justified idea. In any encounter with mainstream historical accounts, it is obvious that Native people were very little more than a problem to be solved by colonizers. To white society, they were heathens and behaved like savages. They had no written language. Their children were unschooled, and for the most part, they didn't know how to stay in one place. Many moved their villages according to the seasons. If these people, these natives, were ever going to amount to anything in this United States of America, they had to be taught the proper and acceptable way to live. All aspects of native culture or way of life were unacceptable to the white European mind. Okay? And this country's use of land increased, and as civilization moved west, the Indians remained a problem. The developing white society felt that it was obvious to anyone with eyes to see that these people with such a primitive lifestyle needed to become civilized in order to survive in American society. Additionally, in order for this American society to have the land to expand, the Indians had to be moved out of the way. The European settlers, mostly Christians, were convinced that Christian civilization was for this land and it inhabits the ideal, the goal to be achieved. And it was their belief that it was in keeping with divine intent that society moved forward toward ever more desirable stages of cultural development. In comparison to white Christian culture, Indians lived a savage, subsistence way of life. The tribal organization and the adherence to paganism were a reflection of a lower form of society. Many reformers believed that Indians were, in fact, not intellectually inferior, right, but lived and organized their lives in an inferior manner. Because of this way of thinking, it was deemed that indeed Indians were worth saving. Okay, they were worth saving. They say it's because they didn't feel like they were inferior intellectually, but the way they lived was. Okay, so that's what they mean by kill the Indian, save the man. Okay, it's a contact between whites and Indians became more prevalent as the century wore on, and it became clear to the white settlers that something would have to be done so that Indians might become productive members of this new American society. Okay, I was thinking something during that time. I was trying not to stop, but understanding that this is going on in the 1890s, so to speak, around this time. Well, yeah, 1870, 1923. And so they say as the century progressed, that's when the whites began to encounter Indians more often. Okay, so that's clearly letting you know that all this so-called slavery stuff that was going on, supposedly that was going on in the South and all that by white people just was not true. It's not true. First thing, right? But anyway, I'm not gonna go into a second thing. But yes, understand how this is reading. All right. Okay, it says become more productive members of the American society. Okay, government Indian policy was coming interestingly under fire from Congress, as well as many well-meaning voices from Christian pulpits. Okay, so the Christian started standing up, is what it sounded like. It said the Indian Rights Association group, the Indian Rights Association group, with its roots in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, sought to reform the government's relationship with the Indian nations. Philadelphia provided the venue for another group, the Women's National Indian Association, while in Massachusetts, the Boston Indian Citizenship Association was formed. These so-called reform or support organizations recognized that Indians had been handed only lies, trickery, disappointment, and in some cases, death in exchange for the land that was taken from them. It is obvious, at least to me, that these people thought of themselves as obligated to do something to remedy a situation that was going from bad to worse. The organizations vowed to make amends by seeing to it that Indians would receive the education that would ultimately make them productive members of American society. I find it difficult to understand why the concept of respect for Native people never seemed to develop itself in these philanthropic reformers. Absolute assimilation of was the goal of white society, and nothing short of the complete elimination of Native culture would satisfy them. So clouded by the sense of their own superiority, these civilized whites were unable to see the value of another culture. It said Indians must be taught the knowledge, values, morals, or mores, and habits of Christian civilization. Since the days of the common school movement, the schoolhouse had come to achieve almost mythological status. Reformers viewed it as a seedbed of Republican virtues and democratic freedoms, a promulgator of individual opportunity and national prosperity, and an instrument for social progress and harmony. Moreover, because of the common school, because of the common school's alleged ability to assimilate, it was looked upon as an ideal instrument for absorbing those peoples and ideologies that stood in the path of the Republic's millennial destiny. Adams, page 18. Many whites saw the social revolution of the Indian as a progressive process that could be accelerated by education. Education also promised to relieve the government of the cost of feeding and clothing Native people by encouraging and providing the tools for economic self-sufficiency. Waging war on Indians and protecting frontier communities was also costly, and it was thought that in this area too, education could save money. Then again, there was the question of land. A wild Indian requires 1,000 acres to roam over, while an intelligent man would find a comfortable support for his family on a very small tract. Barbarism is costly, wasteful, and extravagant. Intelligence promotes thrift and increases posterity. Adams, page 20. Okay. Now, day schools and boarding schools. The reservation day school was the first part of this venture into an Indian education. The children lived in the village with their families and attended school nearby during the day. That sounds like us, right? Right now today. In 1870, Congress authorized an annual appropriation of $100,000 for the support of industrial and other schools among tribes otherwise not provided for. The facilities involved were run by various churches and missionary societies, which in 1869 had been provided with overall authority to act in behalf of the government, appointing all Indian agents and hiring all personnel employed on the reservations. Attending at these mission schools was made mandatory by regulations on many reservations for all Native children aged 6 through 16. James P. 318. I understand that. And y'all remember back in the days that most dark-skinned people had the skills of plumbing and electrician and all that type of stuff. They were handymen. They knew all this stuff. So therefore, these programs was geared towards them. And right now today, I think majority of Black people are Christians and are in these societies and church houses and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to let y'all understand how the Indian and Negro things is very intertwined. And most of us know already that we are one and the same, but I don't want to just, okay, boom. Yeah, it is what it is, man. You know what I mean? We talk about the light skin ones, we talk about the Chinese, the Filipinos. And one day we're trying to keep up out of here. They would call it barbaric and stuff like that. But anyway, let's keep it moving. It says speaking any other language than English was strictly prohibited, as was any attempt to adhere to any native spiritual practice. The force that lay behind these prohibitions is rarely seen upon reading the statement from the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, E.A. Hyatt. I have expressed very decidedly the idea the Indians should be taught in the English language only. There is not an Indian pupil whose tuition is paid by the United States government who is permitted to study any other language than our own vernacular, the language of the greatest, most powerful, and enterprising nationalities under the sun, right? It said there is not an Indian pupil whose tuition is paid by the United States government who is permitted to study any other language that our own vernacular, right? Basically, like that of our own vernacular. You see what I'm saying? The language of the greatest, most powerful enterprise nationalities under the sun. So it's saying English is the best language. Is what they're saying, and you know we already know they're saying they can't speak their own language and stuff like that. Speak their own tongue, taking your brain from you, taking your mind from you. Coercement and all that stuff. All right. So now it says the next step was to establish reservation boarding schools that were located near the agency headquarters. Children attending these schools were only permitted to go home during the summer months and perhaps for a short period at Christmas time. Okay? Even with, see, because they was trying to figure out how to make it work, because they were saying it didn't work, really. You know, so they had to keep figuring out different ways to make it work. So that they started keeping them the whole year, and then come in the summertime and Christmas time. Even with the children removed from the daily influence of home and family, the assimilation progress was not proceeding at an acceptable pace as far as the government was concerned. One of the reasons was it was found that parents often came to visit their children, thus allowing the children the opportunity to speak their language and stay in contact with their tribal ways. This was distinctly counterproductive in the eyes of the assimilationists. They were called assimilationists. Okay? They say the third and final plan to be adopted was the off-reservation boarding school. This was finally to be the way to rid Native children of their language and culture. The children were finally sent, in many cases, hundreds of miles away from family, language, and Native ways. What started as an experiment with Indian prisoners soon became the model upon which this latest educational effort was patterned. All right, so that's where you get the prisoner pipeline type idea from. You get it from this. Okay? It was patterned after the prison system, the schools was. The schools are. Therefore, that's what makes it that crazy. Interesting, right? And you had these leaders they were sending off to these Hampton schools and all that stuff to be teachers of this. So instead of reforming people, the wild Indians, stuff like that, now they promote different type of things to place you into it, into the prison pipeline system. At first, there's a way of them trying to quote unquote take you out of it. The deal for you to not be a prisoner was to become a citizen. Now that you're a citizen, the deal is to have you to become a prisoner and take you out of being a citizen. You understand what I'm saying? Man, listen, I don't want to get too far into it on that aspect, but it's just crazy. All right. It said the third and final plan was to adopt observational regulations. Okay, the children were sent many miles away, experiment educational patterns. Okay. It say what started as an experiment within the prison soon became a model upon which the latest educational efforts was patterned. Right here. In St. Augustine, Florida, with volunteer teachers, Lieutenant Richard Henry Pratt, the officer in charge of a group of Indian prisoners of Fort Marion, began to teach the Native prisoners the white man's language. With the teaching of the language came heavy doses of Christianity. So it's letting you know the English language is closely related to Christianity. It's like one and the same. It's like a sacred language, holy language, so to speak, but not sacred and holy in the sense of, oh, it's perfect and all of that. It's meaning that it don't change. It mean what it mean then. And what it meant then is the same thing it means now type thing. But anyway, that's another topic. It's a separation of church and state seemingly did not apply when it came to Christianizing Indians. In the 1890s, the U.S. government, in the name of the Indian office, stipulated that students in government schools were to be encouraged to attend churches and Sunday schools. The reformers, the Indian and the reformers, the government and society in general new Christianity was essential for the development of the good Indian. It mattered little at the time that the government mind and the Christian mind were in fact one. Church and state shamelessly walked hand in hand. Okay? Understand all that. Christianizing the Indians, right? They say this Indian institution that seems the Indian office, right? They stipulated that they had to go to church on Sunday. You got all these black folks always going to church. You got to make sure you go to church on Sunday. No matter what you do, go to church, pay your tithes. But anyway, okay. They say Christian proselytizing suffused the educational effort during these decades. Missionaries, of course, attempted to indoctrinate denominational creeds into young Indians. But even as the government edged the mission societies to the margin, its teachers also sought to imbue pupils with some form of Christianity. For most secular as well as missionary educators, civilization was inconceivable unless grounded in Christian, especially Protestant values. That was said by Coleman, P15, page 115. Right? It said at the top, it said Christian proselytizing suffused the educational effort during these decades. Missionaries, of course, attempted to indoctrinate the denominational creeds into young Indians. Okay. So let me see what proselytizing is. Because it said Christian proselytizing suffused. Okay, let's see what proselytizing and what suffused mean. It suffused the educational effort, because we know what the educational effort was. Okay, so let's see. Define how you spell that? Proselytizing. Okay.
Proselytize.
It's called proselytize. That's what it's called, y'all. Proselytize. It's a convert or attempt to convert someone from one religion, belief, or opinion to another. Okay, so it's a Christian conversion, it's an attempt to converge, you know what I'm saying? All right. To convert a person to a Christian, it's a fuse the educational effort. So let's see what suffuse means. Suffused. All right, let's see. I said suffused. You gave me it. Let's see. I'll get back to it. Here we go, y'all. Almost there. Just slow on my typing. Suffuse. All right. Suffuse means gradually spread through or over. Gradually spread through or over. The origin is below, pour. Pour from below. Poured into. Okay. All right. So it say suffuse the education, poured into it. All right. It say the Christian proselytization poured into the educational effort during these decades. Say missionaries, of course, attempted to indoctrinate denominational creeds. Right. We read about indoctrinate, how that mean. Y'all know it. Y'all understand where I'm going with it. Right. Into young Indians. So respectful young men, something like that is what they're trying to imply? I don't know. It's kind of like tricky how they word that with the young Indian part. Right. Like they try to turn them into young Indians, how I'm reading this. Right. It say, but even as the government edged the mission societies to the margin, its teachers also sought to imbue pupils with some form of Christianity. All right, for the most secular, okay, missionary educators. Okay, all right, boom. So, all right, College Style Indian School, then Richard Henry Pratt. It said Pratt arrived in 1875 in Florida with the prisoners, and by the end of 1878, he was told that he was free to continue the education of Indians being released from prison. After spending 1 year at the Hampton Normal and Industrial Institute, Pratt was permitted to take his students to an unused military barracks in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Thus was the beginning of one of the most significant of the residential Indian schools. So understand now, we were talking about Carlisle down in St. Augustine. Now we're talking about in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Yeah, he was able to use one of these barracks. All right, so Carlisle and Hampton were the beginning of the system of schooling for Indian children that would prevail into the next century. At one point, Pratt was told that an army officer's place was with his regiment. Pratt answered angrily, and with passion with a letter sent to the President Hayes. Now I want y'all to peep games too how they keep talking about just Indian, but we already know there's brothers in this thing. It's here a lieutenant struggles to evolve order out of the chaos of 14 different languages, civilization of savagery, right? It's industry and thrift out of laziness, education out of ignorance, cleanliness out of filth, and is forced to educate the courage of his own instructors to the work, and see that all the interests of his government and the Indians as well are properly served. Adams, page 55, sound like he's playing. It said, in the opinion of the government and the white Christian reformers, the reservation schools were not only good for the Indians, but they were good for the surrounding community. The schools provided employment for local residents and regularly purchased supplies from local merchants. The students themselves were a welcome source of cheap labor for the owners of the surrounding farms. At Carlisle, Pratt required students to live with good white families for at least part of every school year in order to see the benefits of having good normal character and living in the nuclear family structure as opposed to the tribal structure. This outing program, as Pratt called it, was to give the students firsthand knowledge and of civilization and the beneficial influence of Christianity. Now, peep game. Some of these stuff that we say, okay, yeah, the black people were slaves and stuff like that, and we see them catering to the white people. These are direct results from these so-called outing programs, teaching them how to do basically like home economics type things. You understand what I'm saying? And they finessed it into like a slavery type deal. Because as y'all can see, it said every year that they had to go to some white families that was chose, I guess probably like the white elite, to come and have these people, the so-called help, had these people come to their house and cater for them, and the psychology of teaching them how to become civilized. Wow. Okay. So it said the policymakers, it said firsthand knowledge. Okay. It said the policymakers proceeded towards their goal of assimilation in an orderly manner. The students, upon their arrival, were required to have their hair cut short, and the act produced much resentment among the new students. Right? It said first thing they had to do was cut their hair off, and students didn't like it. It said tribal dress or clothing was not permitted, as school uniforms were provided and required to be worn. Their children's names were another connection to their home and family, so they too were changed, and new pronounceable names were assigned to each. No effort was spared when it came to breaking the native cultural ties. Now, peep game people, y'all know when you start school when you're a little kid, first thing they do, they have everybody's name on the desk. So back then, what they were doing, they were actually changing your entire name and assigning it to you. Like, hey, your desk is such, such, such. Your name is such, such, such. Wow. Assimilation. This is the slavery we're talking about right here. If we're talking about slavery with dark-skinned people, this is it. Mental. It's a No effort was spared when it came to cultural ties. All right. They say the school, the new physical environment was also used as a teaching tool. The wild and natural was pushed back in orderly. Managed grounds were okay. Let me read that again. See, because they're breaking down what was really going on, y'all. It said the school, the new physical environment, was also used as a teaching tool. The wild and natural was pushed back and orderly. Managed grounds were constructed. The land was tamed, controlled, and conquered and mirrored the process outlined and established to deal with the students. All an expression of the power of the white man. The formality and order of the English garden garden was an elemental expression of civilization, and therefore another useful illustrative educational tool. Never think for 1 minute that the Native children attending these schools were not at every turn reminded of their lesser status in comparison with white society. Psychology, y'all. There was great effort put into building character, instilling good morals and responsible citizenship, even though it would not be until 1924 that the Curtis Act declared that all Indian people to be citizens of the United States. As I encounter information about how this period of government schools began and subsequently developed, I find myself wondering how the idea of assimilation never left a sore taste in the reformers' collective mouths. The children in these schools were captives in much the same way that a prisoner is captive. Regimentation, structure, discipline, and uniform clothing were characteristics of the reservation schools of the reservation school system, and all established to produce the glorified end of making one culture disappear into the underbelly of another. Okay, so that's what's going on these reservations right now today, my people, and why it's going to be hard to get an understanding because they are in the underbelly of another culture, which is the white man, so-called American culture, the buffers, the educated elite, so to speak. They say the fact that any of these children succeeded in remaining connected to their tribal ways after their experience in the government school system is remarkable. They seem resilient in the face of oppression, of oppressive disrespect. Hey, who are they talking about? Who remain resilient in the face of oppressive disrespect? Right? It say the fact that any of these children succeeded in remaining connected to their tribal ways after their experience in the government school system is remarkable. Huh? And you can still stay true to it. You ain't changed and become a buster as you got your so-called education. It's remarkable. It said they seem resilient in the face of oppressive disrespect. It said on February 1887, the General Allotment Act, or the Dawes Act, became law. By way of offering context and some definition, I offer this short excerpt from Ward Churchill. By 1890, fewer than 250,000 Indians remained alive within the United States, a degree of dissemination extending into the proper 90th percentile. The survivors were lodged on a patchwork of reservations, even then being dismantled by the application of what was called the General Allotment Act. Under provisions of this statute, effected in 1887, a former eugenics code was utilized to define who was and who was not Indian by U.S. standards. So they say 250,000, right, y'all? But they just told you that they finessed the game anyway. So of course, it could be way more than that. And then a lot of people didn't even go to the reservations because they chose to stay and become so-called citizens. Now, it say those who could and were willing to prove to the federal satisfaction that they were of one half or more degree of Indian blood and to accept U.S. citizen in the bargain, right? In the bargain, received a deed to an individual land parcel, typically of 160 acres or less. Once each person with a sufficient blood quantum had received his or her allotment of land, the remaining reservation land was declared surplus and opened up to non-Indians homesteading, corporate acquisition, or conversion into national parks and forests. Okay? That's what most of this land is. That's the surplus of it. That means the extra leftover part of it. They say through this mechanism, the best 100 million acres of the reserved native land was stripped away by 1930. Okay? This is written by Churchill, page 31. Okay, so peep the game that they ran on you now. And they say in order to be a so-called reservation Indian, you had to be a citizen still. Okay? So now they say 2 years later, the Indian office directed that all schools use the anniversary of the passing of the Dawes Act as an opportunity to impress the students the opportunity given them by the legislation. A new school holiday was therefore created called Indian Citizenship Day. The native students were treated as though they were new immigrants in their ancestral land. So when they made you sign up to be citizens and all that, they turned you into an immigrant on your own land, is what they're telling you. I am going to quote some lengthy excerpts from Adams' book, Education for Extinction. That's a hell of a book, huh? I ain't read it yet, but it sounds like a good one, y'all. Education for Extinction? For extinction? Extinction? Killing that word. It's crazy. It's because I think one can get a better sense of the pressure of the assimilationist intent from reading the original wording. Man, it must be bad. It said excerpts are from a stage production written by Helen Ludlow and performed at Hampton in 1892. The name of the piece is Columbia's Roll Call. All of the players are, of course, Indian students. How much more instructional it is to be able to participate in a stage production than to merely view it. I can only imagine how difficult it must have been for some of the students and how rewarding and edifying for their teachers. It seems to me that it takes a certain kind of twist in a mind to create something as such as this and force Native students to be a part of it. Now peep game now when they say, of course, all the students were Indians. But of course, we saw in that picture there were more dark-skinned so-called Negroes than the light-skinned so-called Indians. So that's why I say they know for sure you are the Indians. We are the black people of this land. We are the Indians. Along with whoever else decided to identify themselves as the such. But hey, this is what's going on. And so this guy came with this play to further indoctrinate the people. So y'all give me a short break right quick. I'm about to go grab something to drink, and I'll be right back. Give me like 2 minutes. Not even that long, but yeah, give me a second. As a matter of fact, I ain't gonna be stingy. I'm gonna go ahead and let y'all start reading some more. Y'all want to read from right now. I'll be right back though. All right, people. About to get back to it. 1 second. But yeah, man. It's a whole lot of stuff going on, y'all. I'm trying to nip this in the bud pretty much once and for all when it comes to dealing with this. Because no military secret what's going on when it comes to the school stuff and all that. We're on this reflection day. So I feel like toasting up one. Or tossing up a few, actually. And I don't even drink. But I'm having a couple right now for those who wish to be in my business. About to get ready to roll up me one. Roll up me a little J. But I'm read to y'all at the same time if I can. If that's possible. So I think we left off at, it said Native students to be a part of it. They say the pageant structure revolves around the mythic American goddess Columbia. What it say? Pause. That's a good point to pause that right there. Because I want y'all to understand, right? When I'm reading about this right here, it's going to show y'all what America is all about when it comes to our political system and what we're following, and what we represent, what the culture is supposed to be, the so-called American culture is supposed to be. And we're dealing with the American goddess, Columbia. So we see Columbia pictures and all this type of stuff. Yes, that's what it means. We're talking about the District of Columbia, stuff like that. When we talking about Olympia, Washington, Olympian gods, and all that kind of weird stuff. Dealing with voting, ballots, magic, witchcraft, war. But we're going to get a little into it in 1 second. Pretty much back up what I'm trying to tell you. But that should be interesting right there in itself. And yeah, man, when this live end or whatever, when this stream end, y'all go dig some more. Go see what's going on. If it's a lie, they told it. Because we're checking it out right now. If it's a lie, they told it, my man. Believe that. Y'all just give me a little intermission on right here. Give me a little break in. Well, yeah, I'm going to read a little bit past that. Since y'all caught that part already. That was a comma too, actually. I wasn't even supposed to stop. It said the pageant structure revolves around the mythic American goddess Columbia, who summons forth, one by one, familiar historical figures upon whom she bestows a badge of citizenship. Okay, so they're trying to brainwash the folks to be like, hey, man, y'all should get a citizenship because this American goddess has granted these people here citizenship. And they're about to name some of the so-called heroes of America to do it. This is education. This is how the stuff is being instilled. This is where we get all these, man, listen. This is, wow. This is next to criminal, for real. Hold on, y'all. Why trying to call me right quick? Hold on. I'll hit it with the text game right quick. Let's see. Let's see. My bad about that, y'all. My bad. Yeah, she ain't want nothing good. She was just calling to holler at me. Y'all know how that is. You chick ain't calling to holler at you. You ain't calling to holler at her. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it's a good little break though, man. I think I've been going about an hour. I don't even know. So goddamn me. Excuse me for the intermission. Hope I'm giving y'all some good little game in between time. Getting some nice little feelings or whatnot. All right, we're about to get ready to get back to it though for sure. All right. So now, you already talking about District of Columbia, the badge of citizenship, right? The first figure to step toward, they say the first figure to step forth is none other than Columbus. He describes the moment when land is sighted. This is our history book, right, y'all? This is what they taught us in school, really. It say, then boomed Penta's signal gun, the first that ever broke. The sleep of that new world, the sound echoing forest, death's profound, a consonant awoke. So listen, y'all, don't forget this a play. The dude concocted up this story, this lie, and sold it as a truth. And the people bought it. All right, it say Captain John Smith comes forward, then Miles Standish. Say Captain John Smith comes forth, then Miles Standish, and Priscilla Alden. Next is John Eliot, the Puritan missionary, followed by George Washington. As these historical heroes, all of them whites, make an appearance, each is given the badge of citizenship. The next to speak is an Indian character who pleads, "You have taken our river and mountains and the plains where we loved to roam." Remember the Plain Indians were sent to St. Augustine. I remember that. Banish us no to the mountains and the lonely waste for home. Right? Told them that they sent them to the lonely, something to the mountains. Basically, the bad part of the land, basically, what they're trying to tell them for their homes. Our clans that were strongest and bravest are broken and powerless through you. Let us join the great tribe of the white men as brothers to dare and to do. Do y'all hear this? This is a play this man came up with, this white man, to indoctrinate the indigenous native people. Indians were now willing to join the white man's march of progress. And the still ways of peace we would follow. Sow the seed and the sheaves gather in. Share your labor, your learning, your worship, a life larger, better to win. Then, foemen no longer nor aliens, but brothers indeed we will be. And the sun find no citizens truer as he rose to the uttermost sea. So we're gonna no longer call you aliens no more. We're gonna call you brothers. Columbia replies by challenging the Indians to name individuals of their race equal to those white heroes that have made me great and established my throne in the new world. One by one they come forth. There is a Somerset whose lines are, I said to my pale-faced brother, welcome, Englishman, There is the chiefman who says to Washington, "We welcome you to our country." And the Indian convert recites a Bible verse in Algonquin or Algonquin. Algonquin. I can't smoke this shit right now. Shit, keep going now. All right, let me stick to the business, man. All right, let's say in the end, Columbia is convinced. She gazes upon a group of Indians dressed as farmers, teachers, and mechanics. See, listen, all this is brainwash. This is what they're trying to convert the people into farmers, teachers, and mechanics. They say their plea was for a piece of honor and citizenship. Seems too reasonable to deny. And she says to her Indian wards, "You have gained your cause. Your past, your present, and your purposes for the future prove your right to share all I have to give. Take my banner and your place as my citizens." Talking about the flag, the so-called flag. It's a banner. It's telling you that. Mm. It said, what arrogance and gall it took to write those words and demand that they be spoken by native tongues. How like salt ground into the wounds already inflicted on the native people. The idea that children were coerced to speak these words that reverse the truth is hard to imagine. They say it reversed the truth. Indian people were being told that they, in effect, had a right to share in had in what had belonged to their ancestors. The divinely driven concept of manifest destiny could be couched in no more descriptive words than those of Helen Ludlow. Many Indian parents resisted sending their children to reservation schools, and opposition was widespread. Indian agents had strong powers of persuasion in this regard. Sometimes rations were withheld from uncorroborative families, and in cases in cases where there was continued resistance, police were sent to take the children by force. The fanaticism of the ghost dance was blamed for some of the opposition to sending native children to boarding schools. Some students, after arriving at the school, became so ill that they had to be sent home, and some students displayed their resistance by running away. The children who remained frequently practiced their culture, and they say the children who remained frequently practiced their culture and spoke their language in secret and in fear. In any case, the schools had difficulty, but in gaining the students' cooperation and attracting the support of the parents. It say, in any case, the schools had difficulty in gaining the students' cooperation and attracting the support of the parents. For those students who did not resist, it was a matter of practicality. Many were convinced that their choice was between assimilation and extinction. So the one that did stay, they felt like they was forced to stay because they didn't stay, they'd be killed. Okay? Man, all this stuff just way too deep, man. Way too deep. So letting you know, hey, the parents weren't with that. So you're like, hey man, why you ain't have no education and why you ain't go to school? Or most of our people didn't go to school because we wasn't with it. We weren't getting sucked out to those boarding schools and stuff like that. We already knew what time was. Our ancestors already knew what it was. And was trying our best to fight and keep them from taking our kids. And they sent the police in there. And then, they'll starve them out if they didn't want to corroborate. And they got pictures of the British starving out people and stuff like that. So obviously it was linked to stuff like that. And they were seen that they deemed to be, anyway. Okay, I just my new run just connecting and running. So just connecting the dots for me for other information of why this all seems to be true. Okay. Where am I at with it? It's I forget where I was at. Gotta start remembering where I stop at if I'm gonna keep stopping. All right, so it sitting the runway. It said the children who remain frequently practice their culture and spoke their language in secret and in fear. Okay, I remember reading that. Say support the parents. Say for those students who did not resist. Okay, I remember reading that too. Simulation distinction. All right, say past associations with the whites had taught Indians that there were never again that they were never again to be permitted to live on their own terms. You understand that? It's a past associations with whites had taught Indians that they were never again to be permitted to live on their own terms. The buffalo were all but gone, and the freedom to travel as their ancestors had was gone. Okay, so the buffalo were all but gone, and the freedom to travel as the ancestors had. Okay, they're coming up with these cities and all that stuff. They killed all the buffalo, stuff like that. They couldn't travel how they wanted to travel no more. So that's what they're talking about. Okay. Now, graduation ceremonies at the schools gave further opportunity to reiterate the white agenda. So we happy that our children graduate and stuff like that, man. They got us in the trick bag all the way. Man, this is crazy. This is crazy. This is insane. I don't think y'all understand how insane this is. I'm kind of lost for words and fluttering, all that type of stuff, man, because I'm thinking about so much stuff at the same time. It said two things permeated commencement rhetoric. The first was transformation. Indians arrived in a state of savagism, but now returned thoroughly civilized. This had been the school's quintessential, quintessential, however you say that stuff, right? Or mission, y'all. Quintessential mission. The Indian is dead in you, the Reverend A.J. Lippincott proclaimed at one Calypso commencement. Let all that is Indian within you die. You cannot become truly American citizens, industrious, intelligent, cultured, civilized, until the Indian within you is dead. Adams, page 274. They said this at a commencement, man. I mean, when you out there getting your little diploma or whatever the case, we ran that to everybody. It's a token to show that you killed yourself. Now it says the reformers who had strongly supported the idea of education as a tool for assimilation began to see that the desired end was not forthcoming. Some students returned to their homes and to their tribal ways, and others, although not returning completely to their old ways, became, in a sense, bicultural. Those who strongly supported Indian education viewed neither of these situations as a success. Okay? So now it say they tried to do that, but it didn't work the way they wanted it to work. Because a lot of us still remember, and we went back home. When we went back home, we just converted back to what we already knew. And then you got to remember, not many of our people went to school, so it was just like, boy, it made your ass feel like, boy, you talking white and all that old shit. That's why they say you talking white and stuff like that. That's what they mean. Like, boy, you ain't got no flavor. You ain't kicking no flavor the way you speak. You speak too proper. Not that it's something wrong with being smart and making sense out of what you're saying, but the way you saying it, you just don't seem like yourself, like your brain been took from you. That's what they meant back then. You know, yeah. Here we go. That's crazy. Now I'm sorry, that's not crazy. That's good actually, but it's crazy because we never really saw it that way. All right, the system begins to fall. I think this is the last part of this that I'm reading, y'all. It said, as support for reservation schools began to wither, voices of opposition began to rise. The schools were criticized as tools for making Indians dependent rather than self-reliant. Schools were criticized as cruel for separating the children from their families. The structure and the political support for the philosophies and activities of the reservation boarding schools was fast eroding by the early 20th century. The writings of Zikla Sa and others were encouraging the development of new educational theory. One of the voices of child study moments of the child study movement, G. Stanley Hall, urged teachers to build on an Indian child's natural capacities and background rather than rather than obliterate them. Okay, destroy them. Hall asked, "Why not make him a good Indian rather than a cheap imitation of the white man?" Regardless of this seeming reasonable movement away from the overt assimilationists, these new philosophies were not remarkable for their respect for Native culture. Quite the opposite. These new thinkers were never willing to acknowledge the equality of Native culture. So, even if the rhetoric had changed, the intent remained the same. In 1928, a report entitled "The Problem of the Indian Administration," otherwise known as the Miriam Report, was produced by the direction of the Indian Commission. The Miriam Report was highly critical of government Indian policy with regard to education. The poor quality of personnel, inadequate salaries, unqualified teachers, and almost non-existent health care were some of the criticisms leveled by the report. The assimilationists had failed. Indian culture had survived. The misguided efforts of the reformers had profound negative effects on the Native children. For a people that had endured almost 400 years of oppression. Now, who are we talking about? When we say 400 years of oppression, who is that always being referred to? Okay? And they're saying that the traditions have survived. So all the traditions that we do and that's not so-called proper or civilized is our natural culture. Everything we're doing is natural. We've been doing it from beginning of time. They've never been able to stop it. I want to make that clear to y'all. We got to embrace who we truly are. And we ain't them. And that ain't this. And this is not that, for sure. Even though it might be intertwined and finessed and all that, but that's just the way of communication. That's just, that's the way of trade. We intermingle certain words, intertwine certain things to hey man, y'all see where I'm going with it. One thing about us, we ain't never been dumb. All right, so let's keep moving. So where we at with this here? It say the personnel inadequate salaries are qualified the criticism leveled by the report. It said the simulation is failed and any culture survived. The misguided efforts of the reformers promoted negative 400 years of oppression, right? It said the reservation school system was just another of the deplorable anti-Indian action of white America and its government. Okay, it was considered to be an anti-Indian action. All right. They say for tribal elders who had witnessed the catastrophic developments of the 19th century, the bloody warfare, the near extinction of the bias and the scourge of disease and starvation, the shrinking of the tribal base, the indignities of reservation life, the invasion of missionaries and white settlers, there seemed to be no end to the cruelties perpetrated by whites. And after all this, the schools, okay, we read it already. You know what I mean? Said, can the Great Indian War should be waged against children. They are coming for the children. All right. Adams is correct. The war at the turn of the last century, was waged against the children. But fortunately for this country, the children had not listened to those who told them to let the Indian within you die. Okay, cool. Y'all hear that? I said, yeah, they were trying to do it, whatever, but I said, but fortunately, the kid didn't listen. He's like, I ain't finna let nothing in me die. I don't know what you're talking about. We do not agree with that statement. All right, say one would think that would be enough to open the ears and eyes and the mind of white America that war against children, but sadly, it is not. It's a that war against children, right? It's a open up their eyes that war against children. Okay, but sadly, it's not. It's that America has her Indian problem. Let me read that again. It didn't read right. I'm starting from the top. It said Adam is correct. The war at the turn of the last century was waged against Indian children. But fortunately for this country, the children had not listened to those who told them to let the Indian within you die. One would think that would be enough to open the ears and eyes and the mind of white America that war against children, but sadly it is not. America still America still has her Indian problem. Native people are still told to get over the past. America remembers what it did to its black slaves and is sorry. America remembers what happened to the Jews in Europe and says never again. America refuses to remember what it's done to Native people. It wants to forget the lies and the slaughter. Y'all see how they tried to, y'all see what they just did? They acting like they recognize black slaves, stuff like that, right? And then not one time we hear anything about black slaves, stuff like that, but see, this is dude talking on this part. They say, think America remember that what happened. And meanwhile, the war continues. The genocide had not stopped. Shame, right? That's all his implication right there. He was just trying to implicate what he's saying that Adam said right here. You see what I'm saying? He did all that conjecture when it comes to the black slaves and all that. Now, one time they said something about some black slaves up here. They were talking about any the whole time. But yeah, y'all see what's going on though. For real though. There's a whole lot going on in this passage, man. A whole lot of little keys and stuff y'all can branch off cues, right? Rather. Trying to see if I can go to one right quick to get back to like the topic. You know, I'm really talking about what I'm talking about again. Like I was telling you about the Hampton. So I make this shit smaller. Shit ain't going small for me. Shit, it's that other so. All right, see if I can get this shit smaller, man. It ain't getting smaller for me, so I can go to the top and force it to do it. Let's see. Get down to that's too goddamn small now. All right, I don't know why they line up the way I want to, but okay. Let's see if I can link off to something else right quick. Because I wanted to show who was the first teacher of the school. I don't know what that sister's name was. Let me go back. Get on back what's going on. So as y'all can see out of all that stuff that I just read off on, y'all see what's really going on. Y'all know who the main people was there. And let's see. Let's see, they show the first teacher, see what her name was. I forget how I found her. I took pictures of her and shit though, but that'll be a lot on your mind. Let's see if I can go through here and find her. Like you said. They probably ain't gonna show it in that one. That'll still be hell. Let's see. I think it came out of that one. Yeah. Let's see. She was in my search bar. Because I pretty much showed y'all everything I'm going to show you for the most part. Let me see if I can go to this the dude here because he's the main person that had something to do with setting it up to make the shit smaller, man. Hey, number right now. What the hell? I don't know why I can't make this shit small, people. But do it like this again. Reset. Boom. I don't know what's up with that. Kind of weird, actually. Yes, indeed. I don't want to say that cracker. All right. This ain't how it's supposed to be, but we're going to roll with it, man. Trying to see if I can see the sister when it comes to school. What was her name? That's crazy. I forgot her name. But anyway, it was a sister, though, that for the sake of time and shit like that, because I already know that now already went well past an hour. But this dude that kind of started up, follow him, stuff like that. I got it in my screenshots right quick because I hate to throw something out there because I really want to show y'all this here. And actually, two sisters too, but I can't remember the other one. I have to do a part 2 or something on it. So y'all, so I can get into some deeper information because the main idea was just to show how the school system is basically the cause of what's going on, and that when we talk about civilizing ourselves and stuff like that, it has everything to do with American culture, not necessarily the right culture or whatever. It's just the fact that it's what they say they want you to follow. And the fact that you had your own culture and that it was literally stripped away from you. Literally taken away. But of course, I can't get to it. So I'm going to go ahead and really save it for part 2, which is crazy. I think I may have something. I don't know if I took a picture of that or not. And this one. Hold on, I think I may have one. But took a picture of the motherfucking lady, but I ain't catch her name. It don't look like. That's crazy. Oh, I think her name is Diana Fletcher. Let's see if I can pull it up, y'all, right quick before I let y'all get out of here, because I want y'all to see this here. I want y'all to see this. This is crazy how big this shit is at the top. I ain't understand what the hell going on with this here. But it's all good. Let's see. I might be getting a point. So you separated. And Fletcher. Seminole teacher. Let's see what they get right here. But this is the picture. But I never looked in this article right here, per se. I don't know. I guess my computer kind of freezing or something. I guess that's what it is. Well, I can get it small and all this shit. All right, but anyway, this is her. Her name is Diana Fletcher. There's a lot of Fletchers out there that I know. I know y'all know a lot of Fletchers. You may even be a Fletcher yourself. I think it was worth the wait, so I ain't gonna worry about the other stuff. But yeah, y'all see her. That's a sister all day. You see it. And no doubt about it. All right. Diana Fletcher. They say, well, they're trying to call her a slave type thing. Watch this. Watch the finesse game. They say the birth of Diana Fletcher is celebrated on this date in 1838. She was a black Native American Seminole historian and teacher. Born in Oklahoma, Indian Territory, her black father was born in Virginia as a slave. While still a young child, he was sold to a man who lived in Florida. Now, we already know Florida went with the slavery. They say he ran away and lived with the Seminole community. Though still a slave, they treated him better than his former master. Oh, that's that lie type shit. Yeah. Well, it could be the truth because, treat him as a child or a family member type thing. Anyway, that's another topic. All right. Because, they play mind games, word games with you. Okay. They say, though still a slave, they treated him better than a former master. He married a Seminole woman who died during the Indian Removal Act of 1830. The forced relocation of Indians to Oklahoma, young Fletcher learned traditional Kiowa crafts from her stepmother, sewing, cooking, tanning, buffalo hides, making teepees, and basket weaving. When the members of the tribe raised enough money, they built a small school and hired her as a teacher. The African Native American schools were operated by the 5 civilized tribes, the Creek, Chickasaw, Cherokee, Choctaw, and Seminole. Fletcher's main success was valuing and preserving her family's history, culture, and values while learning to adjust and adapt to white American society. Oh, that's why I pulled it up, because she was one of those children, I think, that when they got that education that they're talking about from the Hampton school, all that type of shit, all them schools, and they held on to the traditions, though, that really came back and was brought about the business of helping our people. It's a Fletcher's main success was valuing and preserving her family's history, culture, okay, just white man's side. It's a because of ignorance, prejudice, and racial hostility, there was an attempt to force Black Indians to reject their heritage. What were we just reading about? Fletcher's main accomplishment was valuing and preserving her family's history, culture, and values, while at the same time learning to adjust and adapt to white American society. Because of ignorance, prejudice, and racial hostility, the U.S. government attempted to force, I just read that, as well as all Native Americans to reject their heritage, right? What they say, and as well as all Native Americans to reject their heritage. As well, all together now, okay, say, because people like Diana maintain their traditions, we can now learn about their important contributions to the history of America. Some sources say Diana attended the Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute in Virginia, later called the Hampton Institute. Although listings of students do not reflect this. Because people like Fletcher maintain their traditions, we can now learn about their important contributions to the history of America. The details of the death of Diana Fletcher are unknown, reference, okay? So they claim that she probably was one of their students or something like that. But there was another Black lady, she's not the one in particular that I was looking for. But yeah, keep y'all eyes on that sister right there, right quick. Until let me let y'all see the title for the one I try to pull up. It's Sunday, 11/11, 1838. All right, it's way back then. Showing y'all the people that was over here at the least. Don't play games. They were like literally connected in the bloodlines. Which we already know was definitely indigenous, but you know how they try to play it like it wasn't. But we know what time it is. And so yeah, I don't have that file I'm looking for. The lady that was a teacher. I forget her name. But I know it, like I said, I think I got the screenshot somewhere, but it might be on this computer. But I don't know. I don't think I'm better to get straight to it, to be honest with you. But yeah, though. it'll be a part 2 because, like I said, I already went too long on this one. A lot of people ain't gonna even watch it all the way through, you know. But like I said, get something out of it, run with it, put your 2 and 2s together, and see what time really is. All right, but yeah, man. Until next time, I'll holler at y'all.